Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Our topic today, the sacrifices and triumphs of motherhood. My guest is Dr. Nicole Saphier, author of the new book, Love Mom, Inspiring Stories Celebrating Motherhood. Dr. Saphier, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is quite an incredible topic, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about it.
Well, a lot of our viewers immediately recognize your name and your face because you are a Fox News contributor. You are also a medical doctor, a board-certified radiologist who later went on to practice at Memorial Sloan Kettering, one of the best cancer hospitals in the nation. You've written 3 books. So what's really interesting, I say all that because a lot of people don't know, you were a teen mother. Your motherhood story is absolutely fascinating. You found out you had an unplanned pregnancy at the age of 17, and you chose to have your child. And, you know, a lot of people say you can't do that and still pursue your career goals. In fact, that's one of the main reasons people say you should have an abortion, is because you can't have the dream career you want, and yet look at your life. Can you talk about your own personal story of motherhood?
Well, I can't tell you how grateful I am that I was able to share not only my motherhood journey in the book, but other mothers as well. But, in the book, I really dive into some of the details of, my entire motherhood journey that I haven't been public about before. I was an honor student in high school, an athlete. And yes, I was that statistic. I became pregnant at the age of 17, and I was faced with a huge obstacle. Do I continue on with the pregnancy or do I not? I can tell you that, a lot of people around me, not everyone, but a lot of people around me told me that if I continued with the pregnancy, that I would never fulfill my dreams of being a doctor and kind of going on to do all the things that I had been working so hard up until that point to do. Ultimately, I did make the decision that I'm having my child. And thank goodness I did, because he is the greatest gift. He is now my oldest of 3 boys. But that being said, it wasn't easy. I was that pregnant teenager walking the halls of my high school my senior year. I gave birth about 6 weeks before I graduated. My parents were holding my newborn son in the stands of my high school graduation. And then from there, I can tell you, he was also at my college graduation, my medical school graduation, and he's been with me every step of the way.
That is an absolutely heartwarming and beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it was like making that decision to have the baby or to not have it, and what led you to decide to have him?
Well, I can tell you it was a very lonely time. I was, a teenager. I lost a lot of friends when I made the decision to have the baby. My boyfriend and I at the time also broke up. And, my parents were also a little wary of, what my future held. But ultimately, I kind of had to just look inside of myself to make that decision. I couldn't look to anybody else to help me make the decision, because I'm the reason I was in that situation, and I'm the person who's going to make the decision as to what to do. I was very faithful at the time. I used to go to Bible study, rosary, teen mass. One of the most heartbreaking things that happened when I found out I was pregnant was that I was asked not to go to teen mass anymore. Looking back, maybe I can understand, because they didn't want me to be, a bad influence on some of the other adolescents, but it was heartbreaking at the time. But that didn't mean that I questioned my faith or I questioned God. It was unfortunately just a disappointing moment with my church. But I really looked inward. I looked to myself and I looked to faith. I was reading my teen Bible a ton during that time, and I was trying to draw strength from my Bible. And ultimately, I knew that I was just going to take a different path to reach my goals. Yeah, it's going to be a little harder, but taking the road less traveled can sometimes be the most rewarding thing you do.
That just makes me want to cry about how you were so ostracized even at church. I think about my church, and one of my friends in high school got pregnant, and we just wrapped our arms around her. And it makes me so sad that was not the experience you had. And what gave you such strength to endure all that?
Oh, geez. Well, I didn't feel strong at the time. I can tell you there were a lot of nights of crying into my pillow and listening to music. I'm a huge fan of music and, feeling the emotion of certain songs and trying to relate with it. But I can tell you that I did have my family and I did have a few remaining friends. And they really rallied around me, after the initial shock. But once I made the decision, like, this is happening, you either get on board with me or get out of my way because this is what's happening, they really did help lift me up. And without the support of my family and friends, I certainly don't think I would be where I am today. But I can tell you that part of the motivation to keep going forward, to keep pressing on, was because I needed to prove all those naysayers wrong. I had so many people saying to me, "You're going to ruin your life. Your life is never going to be successful as you're wanting it to be. Your child's life is never going to be successful the way that it should be." So I've spent the last 20 years proving them all wrong.
Absolutely. And didn't I hear you say your son is graduating college or did graduate?
Yep. So my oldest son, he's now almost 24. He has graduated college. He's in flight school to be a commercial airline pilot, and he's doing incredible. And he has two younger brothers as well now. And I couldn't imagine life without him. I wouldn't be me had I not had him.
Wow, what a story. So, you talk about how you made it through your difficult pregnancy, and I'm guessing the early years of motherhood with faith, friends, and family. And that's sort of a theme of your whole book, not just your story, but there are lots of other stories of motherhood and all types of challenges. And it seems like faith, family, friends is what helped people endure these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, telling my story is such a privilege, but I got to interview so many other moms for this book. Many of the moms, from Fox, so Ainsley Earhart, Kayleigh McEnany, Jennifer Griffin, Martha MacCallum, many others. But I also included moms that I had met outside of Fox, some of my patients, colleagues, Gold Star moms, and others. And as you're mentioning, there were some very core themes that emerged all throughout the book of leaning on faith, leaning on family, leaning on friends, and really looking inside of yourself to finding your own strength. And one of my favorite things about the book is in the center, there's this color pamphlet full of scripture, quotes, little tidbits of advice that all the moms contributed to for easy reference.
That is so wonderful. So you can sort of take those scriptures with you and put it in your purse, and so you can sort of look at them and can get inspiration anytime during the day.
Absolutely.
The women that you talk about in this book who share their stories are such faith-filled Christians. And here you are at Fox News, and they are just allowing you to openly endorse Christianity. What is that like for you to work there with that aspect?
Well, I can't speak for other networks. I can just tell you that the Fox family has been all-encompassing, very welcoming, and it's wonderful to see people be able to express themselves, specifically their faith, and their opinions, without being silenced. And that's a really good feeling. So Fox in itself feels like another family. I can tell you during the COVID pandemic, I didn't necessarily feel that way with some of the other places that I'm affiliated with, but I always felt confident in knowing that what I was saying on Fox was based on my opinion on science and, certainly wasn't hindered by anybody else. And that's a really great feeling.
Indeed. All right, we're going to take a quick break and be right back with Dr. Nicole Saphier. The book is called Love Mom, Inspiring Stories Celebrating Motherhood. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're continuing our discussion with Dr. Nicole Saphier, author of the book Love Mom, Inspiring Stories Celebrating Motherhood. And Dr. Saphier, you mentioned that you were a teenage mom and then you went on to medical school and a brilliant career, and you relied on faith and family and friends to get you through. Can you elaborate a little bit more about it, how you did that? A lot of people were probably like, wow, how did she do that with a newborn baby?
Yeah, well, I was quite a sight starting college. I had a newborn baby, I was breastfeeding, and I was also on crutches because I just had my ACL redone after a lifetime of gymnastics, what it felt at the time. So starting college, I was quite a sight. And, I think it's funny when people are like, oh, motherhood is a blessing. It's beautiful. It's easy. It was certainly not easy. I was going to school in between classes, running to the babysitter to breastfeed the baby. And it was hard. It was a struggle. And I think one thing that moms, as we tend to do, we try to do everything ourselves. And one of the things that you really have to realize, you have to lean in on those around you. That's certainly a theme in the book Love Mom. We all talk about how it takes a village. I mean, it really does take a village to help with children. And so, in the book, I go into some of the highs and lows during this time about how I missed an exam because I had to take my son to the emergency department. And it was, an internal battle. What is the right thing to do? Where are my priorities? And ultimately, as a mom, yeah, we can have so many other things, but our priorities really are our children. And it's the most fulfilling thing ever. And while, we are pursuing our goals, our professional, educational goals, at the end of the day, there's no greater gift than being a mother. And that was something that, I really had to learn as I was getting older. Don't forget, I was very young. And during that age, most of us are dealing with that selfish time where it's all about me, 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 me. Well, I had that struggle of being an 18, 19, 20-year-old, quote unquote, kid. Not really a kid, but kid. But I had a kid as well. And I was trying to pursue my dreams. So there was a mixture of emotions. One thing that I talked about even more in the book is, the battle with mental illness. Sometimes feelings of depression, anxiety can creep in, but leaning on those around you and kind of, taking a step back and looking at, the obstacles you're trying to overcome and making it so you don't feel so overwhelmed can really help you through some of that time.
And you talk about mental health issues and things that are going on right now. Loneliness is an epidemic. And, you talk about how you leaned on your friends and your family. A lot of people are so lonely, they've kind of lost those connections. What's your recommendation?
Loneliness is a terrible thing, and it only got worse throughout the COVID pandemic. And people, unfortunately, are not having those interpersonal relationships that we once had. And to be honest, I really blame a lot of that on, the digital media, social media. We don't look people in the eyes anymore. We're not talking on the phone anymore. We're not just meeting up for a cup of coffee. There's studies that show that, the receptors in our brain, as we scroll through reels and, we get likes on certain things, there are centers in our brains that light up for that. But that's all short-lived. And all of a sudden, we're programming our brain to have these responses from a screen and not necessarily interacting with other people. And so one of the things that I strongly recommend is you have to put the device down. You have to interact with people. Whether you're just walking on a street and you say hello to someone, you talk to someone at the coffee shop. I mean, even now, you don't even have to talk to someone at the grocery store. You can kind of do it all yourself, and you just quickly tap your phone to pay. You're not interacting with people. So one of the things to combat loneliness, I know sometimes people have strained relationship with their friends and family, but you should focus on that a little bit and do what you can. You're not going to agree on anything, but find some common ground and try to interact with the outside world. It's okay to say hi to a stranger. Just a smile, just a quick hello. You don't know what they're dealing with that day. Not only is it good for your mental health, but it's probably great for theirs as well.
Absolutely. You never know whose life you're touching with just a small act of kindness. Wanted to get back to the book, and you have just the most wonderful different stories, first-person stories from some of your coworkers at Fox and others. And really, it's amazing how many things people have dealt with. I mean, ovarian cancer and miscarriages and domestic abuse and things like that. Can you talk about some of the stories that have really stood out to you?
The way we formatted this book it was really great. So I interviewed everyone, and then we put together their stories in first person. I wrote introductions to each of the stories because I have a personal connection with all the moms in the book. And the one thing I asked the moms about if they're going to be in the book is, can you share something with the audience that you've never shared publicly before? So I have people talking about very intimate things like finding their faith through divorce, miscarriages and losing hope. Some dealt with some domestic violence. There's suicide in there. There's losing a child. There's severe mental health issues. Janice Dean and I both talk about living with an autoimmune diagnosis. And I have one of my patients who I had to give a breast cancer diagnosis to. And so I can tell you that in every rendition, when I went back and I edited these stories, I found myself laughing on some and I found myself crying on others. But every time that I finished, my heart felt so full and so warm that it was I just couldn't wait to get this in the hands of other people because I think this book is truly special. And you just have to read it to get the details of all the stories, because I don't want to ruin it for you, but there are some amazing stories. There's not one that you're just going to quickly go through. They're all gripping.
And all topics that people are dealing with all across the country, not just the things you mentioned, but, things like postpartum depression, blended families, adoption, mixed race children, and the list goes on. Okay, we're going to take another quick break and be right back with Dr. Nicole Saphier. The book is called Love Mom. Welcome back to Healthy Living. Let's continue our conversation with Dr. Nicole Saphier, the Fox News contributor, the doctor who wrote the book Love Mom, Inspiring Stories Celebrating Motherhood. Dr. Saphier, you were talking before about all the different stories and these firsthand accounts that the book is full of and how inspiring they are. What is your overall hope that the readers will take away from this book?
Gosh, sometimes as mothers, we feel, even though we're constantly surrounded, sometimes it feels like we're surrounded by chaos. Sometimes it can be a lonely feeling because that there's that internal struggle, whether you're struggling with, am I spending enough time with my kids? Am I doing the right thing by my kids? Am I keeping a good home? Am I reaching any of my professional or goals or my own personal goals? It can actually feel quite lonely. And sometimes you see people on TV or you just see people in different walks of life and you're like, man, how do they do it all? They must be something special about them. And the reality is we're all the same. We're all dealing with the same struggles. But the thing about this book is we all kind of, strip down and talk about how we handle those moments, when we feel like there's pure chaos. I myself even gave a couple of pieces of advice of what I do each day to kind of get that mental checklist. So my head isn't, filled with all these different thoughts. And it's important to know that we're all going through the same thing. And when you can kind of lean in on, listen to some of these other stories, sometimes you can pick up little pieces of advice. Maybe you can put it to your own life to see how you can make yourself feel better about certain situations. But I think the overarching theme at the end of the day is you're not alone. We're all kind of running around like crazy. But you have to remind yourself that it is such a gift to be a mother, and you should thank God every single day that you are blessed to have children. We are mothers of all different walks of life. No journeys are the same. And this book truly encompasses so many different personalities, so many different stories that I think this book will really warm the hearts of just about anybody who reads it.
For me, one of my takeaways was how fascinating it is that you're so close to your female coworkers. You all seem so lovely and all seem so close. And honestly, that's not always the case with women who work together. And I was just wondering, what's your secret?
Well, certainly it's not a secret, but I can tell you, people probably think like, oh, they're not really that nice off camera. They're not really that nice to each other. I can tell you, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we really are. When I say the Fox family, I truly mean the Fox family. Everyone is there supporting each other. Everyone is there lifting each other up. So when I reached out to these moms, asking them to be a part of this book, there was no hesitation. It was just, absolutely, thank you so much for including me. Whether you're someone who's on air every single day and you kind of have a big platform, or you have a smaller platform, we're all there for each other. And I think a part of the reason that it really works is you have to let go of some of that competitiveness and realize that, we all serve a purpose. And, we're all stronger together when you support each other. When you start being individuals and not working for the collective goal, then you're going to be weaker as that individual. So it is better to kind of band together, especially as women living in this world, because you're stronger together.
Absolutely. That is great advice. We're going to take one final break and be right back with Dr. Nicole Saphier. The book is called Love Mom. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're so glad you joined us. We're talking today with Dr. Nicole Saphier, author of the book Love Mom, Inspiring Stories Celebrating Motherhood. And you really feature a lot of stories from your Fox family, the other women, aside from yourself, who work on camera at Fox. And it's great that you all are so close. And I was just going to ask one more question about that. Do you all go to the same Bible study? I saw something where Ainsley leads a Bible study or is a part of a Bible study. It seems like there are some other Fox women who are a part of it. Does that help?
So Ainsley started this incredible Bible study on Fox Nation that I think that we've probably all attended at least once or twice. And Ainsley also has another Bible study that she does with a lot of her local moms. Unfortunately, because of all of our various schedules and we're kind of all pulled from different directions, it's hard for us to all get together. But I can tell you that we share moments of advice, scripture over text, anytime we're talking to each other. Wouldn't it be great if we could all do a weekly Bible study? I would love to say we could, but with all of the children, all of our work schedules, that's probably pretty difficult for us to do.
Well, it's very inspiring, not just the stories, but also the relationships that you have with each other. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. I would love to talk to you more about this, and I'm sure our viewers would love to hear more. Where can we find out about you, find out more about you, and of course, not only this book, but you've written 2 other books as well.
Well, I've written 3 other books, actually. I've written Make America Healthy Again, Panic Attack, and the children's book, That's What Family's For. You can find me at NicoleSaphierMD.com, but you can also find me. I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, if you read the book Love Mom, you read that first chapter, you're going to know a whole lot about me because I tell you details I've never spoken publicly about before.
I really admire that about you, that you're so open and transparent about your life. Not everyone is that way. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was a joy to speak with you. We really appreciate your time and the book.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks to you for joining us for this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson, and we'll see you again next week. Bye now.